Everyone knows I'm Culler. Some of what I talk about today, you guys might have heard about 6 months ago at a quarterly meeting, but this is kind of a little bit more in depth. But I'm not going to try and bombard you guys with too much information. And feel free to ask questions along the way, so I'm just trying to spark an organic conversation out of this as much as possible. So here we go. So today, my presentation goals are going to include basically just exploring UiPath and all of its related parts. Just kind of give you guys a big goal of it. Oh, there's my wife telling me good luck. Perfect timing. Okay. So yeah, explain the different parts that make up UiPath. I want to then explain a little bit of what Chris and I's goals are and ambitions for this tool inside of Trinity. And then I'm going to demonstrate some processes that me and Rao and Lydia are currently working on in our Folsom project. We are almost done with the first sprint, and it's gone very smoothly. So give you guys a little sneak peek of that. And there is a Q&A at the end, but like I said, you guys just raise your hand or whatever, and we'll make this as natural as possible. Everyone open their bags and sandwiches. You're good, you're good.
Pause.
I know.
Better not take a breath.
To give you a better understanding of what RPA is and what it does, we have automated an internal BMW process, the HR employee ID creation, as part of the contract management for interns. Currently, the process uses 3 systems: IBS, the recruiting platform where the students can put
This is just showing them the process that they're going to try and do for
The
BMW.
second system is called AMS. This is the ticketing tool used at BMW. The last system is SAP, the HR application for payroll. Before the hiring process can take place, the HR representative handling the request must perform 3 steps. First, collect the required information about the applicant and the position that they are applying for. Then, verify whether the student has the right to work in Germany, and if the second step is confirmed, create the employee's personal number in SAP, which concludes the process. Now, let's take a look at how UiPath can optimize it through automation. Let us start by introducing UiPath Studio, the designer tool.
So the main reason I wanted to show this video is it's going to give you this quick overview of the layout and how this kind of runs.
Workflows are created. The main components are the activities pane on the left-hand side, the designer surface in the center, the properties pane on the right, and the tools menu on the top of the page. What you're seeing on the screen is a sequence of activities and decision points representing the HR process proposed for automation. The robot follows the arrows and executes each step from the workflow in a predefined order according to the business rules of this process. Let's run this in slow motion. On the right-hand side, you'll see the robot going through each activity in the workflow, while the actual application will be displayed on the left-hand side. As you can see, the robot starts by opening the browser. It retrieves the credentials and logs into AMS. After checking the pending requests, it logs into IBS, the recruiting system, in order to collect the necessary information. This first task is a typical swivel chair activity, as it requires the user to log into AMS and IBS, then switch between the 2 systems repeatedly, while copy-pasting the information from one to the other. RPA excels at this type of task, so we've successfully automated it. The second part of the process, checking whether the applicant has the right to work in Germany, does not meet the automation criteria, as there are several verification steps involving human decisions. For example, checking if the student has a green card or other types of permissions. This will remain a manual step. Finally, let's take a look at the third step, creating the personal number in SAP. We'll run this step at full speed. The main activities for this part of the process require copying information from AMS and pasting it to SAP, while also populating some of the fields with known standard values. We have decreased the handling time for the 2 automated steps from 20 minutes down to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. For a monthly volume of 600 requests, that is a total reduction of 175 working hours on the processing time. Using RPA has proven benefits within months of deployment. Error and cycle time reduction are just the beginning. Higher scalability to cover peak times is an important advantage. And on top of it all, the cost reduction that RPA brings can be seen with months, giving RPA a very good and fast return on investment.
So that's just kind of an overview of one of the examples of how UiPath is currently being used in the industry. And as you can see, it does cut down on a lot of unneeded resources and time. And that's kind of just the look and feel of the design flow when you're making these robots. Let me go back into slideshow here. Okay, so here, give you guys a minute just to read this. I won't quote this, but this just talks about the different processes automation. You know, so here it's just kind of like the main goals to it. The next slide, I'm going to dive into the three main parts that make up the UiPath. So basically, you know, you can use this as that video mentioned, you know, kind of like swivel chair activities to automate things to help people out, or you can use this as just a testing tool. If you have pass, fail, you know, acceptance criteria for a project, you can quickly spin something up to test those different scenarios. So let's dive into this. So the three main parts to UiPath, you have Studio, which is basically just the software program that you use to drag and drop in your functionality. So it's just a visual designer, basically. You can also input, you know, Visual Basic code in there. You can run your own scripts. So if you have like your own kind of C# code or anything, you can plug that in that can run through that. So that's pretty neat. The robot itself is what runs it. So you have a UiPath robot, and that resides on the machine that you want it to run on. And so when you publish your project from Studio, then your robot can just run that on a scheduled time, or manually you can run it whenever. And what's nice is, you know, so for our current project, we have a robot installed on the client's VM. I can run it externally from Orchestrator, and that robot just resides in there, and it can run it. So it's an unattended robot. There are attended robots, so there's another way where you can have a robot assist somebody doing something. So if we rely on user feedback or input, we can have a robot, you know, automate things and then pop up a window where the person needs to input some information in order for the process to continue. And then Orchestrator is kind of like the hub. It's the web application that enables you to deploy, schedule, monitor, and manage your robots. So you can set up multiple robots against multiple different machines. So if you have 3 different, you know, VMs, you can have, you know, your dev, QA, production, what have you. You can set all those up in Orchestrator. It even has a little phone app that you can look at just to kind of see, you know, how the robot's going. And like I said, you can schedule it to run every minute, 30 minutes, weekly. You can customize it so you can run it off of that client's particular schedule. So if they have different holidays or different work hours, so all of that's really neat. This is a picture of what Orchestrator looks like. So this is just the main dashboard. So it shows you the number of processes that you've published that are in there. Assets, think of those as variables, basically. So the different arguments that a robot might need, you can store as assets in Orchestrator. So, you know, a dev URL and a production URL, so the robot knows which place to go to depending on what you're doing with it. Schedules, the queues. So queues kind of hold your transaction items. So, you know, pass or failed, what passed. So you can pass information from your robot to Orchestrator, vice versa, in order to get information. This is also nice if you have like parallel processing where you have one robot that starts a job and then hands it off to another robot. Orchestrator can do that and can store things that one robot did and then hand it off to the next robot. So that's kind of just an overview of what Orchestrator looks like. This slide, Chris and I kind of put together here. So some common swivel chair tasks that we think UiPath could be great at. So, you know, kind of like this Folsom project I'm currently working on, we're checking a shared email box. That's literally what this first process is. I'll show you guys in a minute. So that's just a great one right there where you can, you know, check email, you can read it, extract the information you need from an email, and then put it into an intake system or just, you know, it goes on and on. It's unlimited what you can do with that. You can save attachments, create folders, so you can use a lot of just system activities where you're not even having to open a Finder window or anything, but you can just create directories, move to places. Today I made the robot actually calculate all the different sizes of each file in a directory and then list those out. And if the file's too big, it tells me, it emails me. So yeah, you can create reports. It has a native email system all set up into it where you just throw in and send email activity and you just put in your server information, email address, and who you're sending it to. Very, very easy. And yeah, sharing status updates. So again, you can have any kind of business rule and then notify people. So creating automated regression tests for business processes, which, as I mentioned, can span multiple systems, different machines, more than one robot. And it doesn't have to be web-based. So, we actually have a project in the pipeline where we might be automating a COBOL system. Yeah, like COBOL, like just an older technology. Yeah, it's like all through like command COBALT. No,
COBOL.
Yeah, okay. I always see, I've been pronouncing it wrong. And automating labor-intensive tasks. So a lot of people have to do a lot of just labor-intensive things outside of their other more important duties, and so that's kind of where we're wanting to head with this. Is not necessarily as a QA tool, but more as kind of help someone out with just things that they could better utilize their time in. So now, let me just give you guys a little sneak peek at what we're currently designing. So this is the actual virtual machine in Folsom. And we have the studio application installed on that VM. And I'm just going to go ahead and expand the canvas as much as possible for you guys. Later on, I kind of talk a little bit about the different classes and stuff you can take to get certified. It dives into the best practices that UiPath is trying to encourage right now. So the UiPath team created what they call the RE framework. And so it's basically just a glorified like round robin architecture. So regardless if your robot fails or stalls or, maybe even hits a rule exception that we didn't encounter or consider, there's always an exit plan. So even if you don't have a lot of coding experience, you can look at this and with not much time, you can kind of understand what this might be doing. Obviously, we're reading our configurations, initializing the application, basically getting any variables or assets that we're going to need for the robot. If it errors out, then we're obviously going to end the process. If it succeeds, then what we do is get the transaction data, meaning what is the first thing that robot is going to work on. Once it gets that first thing that it's going to transact, it goes down and it processes this. And then you just see the round robin effect, basically. So depending on the different scenarios, you can have it go different areas. So for instance here, one of the more easy guys is to log in to the sim. So this is all, like I said, a drag and drop area. You can add annotations just like you can to code. So you can describe and you can add comments, all of that. We handled most of our errors by just doing a try catch, just like you guys can in code. So you can just wrap in a try catch and then you can handle your exceptions. What we're doing is we're opening up Internet Explorer and then passing in the URL that we want it to go to. The robot works best if the window's maximized, because that way we don't have to worry about the different resolutions or, the coordinates of where the mouse needs to go. And then we just start typing in username, the password, all of that good stuff. And you can see it even takes screenshots for you of what you're referring to. And so this is kind of what one of the more simple sequences would look like. Fairly linear. Here is our catch area with our exceptions. So here you can log your error. And then here I have a workflow that I created that just sends the email. And here's where you pass in your arguments. So subject and the message. And ideally, once we go live, most of these messages will be stored in Excel. So that way anyone can change the terminology anytime without having to know what they're doing. Yeah, absolutely.
So sorry, just a quick question on that note. It's so passing your Excel data to the robot.
Yes.
So it can actually go out and grab the Excel data, so you can put whatever what data input you want, and it'll just.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So so basically in here in the initialization, what it does is it goes in here and it reads our Excel file, and
You just give it the path,
And-
tell it what
exactly.
cells to read, it reads it, you can input.
Yep. When you download the RE framework from GitHub, it comes with this set up for you. So you have a config Excel sheet and everything. So the backbone of it's already kind of set up, but then here we can add our own things. So you have our settings, and what this is doing, I won't get too in depth with this, but this is actually saying, okay, so for this asset, this is the name of the asset in Orchestrator. So the robot knows to go in here and then look in Orchestrator for an asset with this name. And then so that's how it would have that URL. Credentials, so these are all hashed out. So it's encrypted in Orchestrator. So the robot goes in here and then it goes into Orchestrator, finds the asset with that name. And that asset stores the username as a string and the password as a secure string. So that's all handled through that. And just to kind of give you guys an idea of that here. When you launch Orchestrator, you can assign different tenants. I'm just using the default tenant right now. So right now we only have one robot and we have one process installed. We're doing one process per sprint. And we have had 2 successful jobs. And so this is kind of an idea of your transaction graph. Since this process is pretty short, not a lot of bad paths. We haven't had a lot of fails yet, but after this meeting, Rao and I are going to break it as much as possible. But you can start seeing you'll get red or green lines depending on how many exceptions you've had or how many successes you've had. And then here we have the assets. So anyone at our client site that has privileges to come in here can change things around. The username for the system. This is the QA URL. And then what you can do is have multiple robots, and the robots know which assets they're going to use. So you can have a QA robot, it's going to use the QA stuff. I have a production robot, it's going to use all of the production assets. When we first start, ideally we just pretty much have everything in the Excel file, and then we start moving things into Orchestrator. So that's how that stuff kind of works. And what happens here is when you are designing your robot, at the very end, you're like, okay, I think this is good. I'd like to publish this. So UiPath has its own versioning built into it. And so it stores the old version and then uploads the new version so you can do rollback at any time. This also is native with TFS, so you can plug this into source control and all of that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this. So it was successfully published. And so if we go into Orchestrator here, this is my process. And we see that we now have a new version. So this is the current version that the robot runs in Orchestrator. I'm now going to tell it to use this new one. So now Orchestrator knows this is the process it's going to run off of now, not the previous one. At any time we can do a rollback. So if people are like, yeah, this is not working right, let's roll back and see what we did, you can do that. And then essentially, as I mentioned in the beginning, outside of Studio, you have where the actual robot itself lives. They call this like the robot tray. But down here is, so the idea is you don't need to have Studio running. This program right here can be completely closed. And in here, so now I'm telling it, hey, install the latest process from Orchestrator. So now this guy is connected. So I can either run my process directly from here, which I'll do right now. And also, my mouse doesn't need to be, so this is not actually using a mouse. So this is a fully unattended robot. and it's using just the elements that it has and trying to localize everything, so it's not grabbing more than it needs from that. So it's kind of nice, is I can be, if I have more than one screen set up, I can have my mouse outside of this VM doing something completely different. It's fully unattended. If you run it from Orchestrator, you don't even need the VM logged in. You don't even need to see it. This is their QA web app, so it is a bit slower. But basically, UiPath is smart enough to have wait events to look for a certain image or a certain element or what have you in the HTML. And it will wait and then provide a Boolean of like if it was found or not. So you can kind of have conditions depending on if a page failed to load or if it was too slow or what have you. So what this is doing right now is it opened up a folder and it collected all of the files, which I'll show you in a minute. It's just a bunch of emails that they store in a folder. And from those emails, I am grabbing the claim number and the actual path that that file resides on. And then we are uploading it to the appropriate claim from SIMS. We upload it, and then we move into the next one. And this robot will continue through it until all the files in that folder have been processed. And at the end, the robot can email the person saying, hey, these following emails were processed. We had a problem with this one and this one. And at the end, it will move the file either to an archive folder or to a, hey, there's a problem with these ones, you need to look at them manually folder. And so that's kind of the idea with this. When we go live, you can make this so it doesn't actually render the browser. You can do all of this in the hidden browser. And that's going to speed up the time a lot too, so it doesn't do the graphics.
How does it know what email to grab?
Yeah, I'll show you. So it's actually, we have a folder right now on our desktop. The clients, one of their jobs is they all have a folder that they work out of. When they get an email, they drag that email, they save that email into a folder. And so there's going to be this one big folder with all these email files in it. And in Orchestrator, I have the directory of where that folder is. And so UiPath, the robot, knows which folder it needs to search through.
And it grabs the top one?
It just moves through all of them. And so Visual Basic has a lot of libraries of like Git directories, Git files with Git files without extensions. So there wasn't a lot of code involved. Visual Basic has a lot of that pre-built, getting the file size, all of that. So I just had to know which library to plug it into. But, go ahead.
Will it still be manual to drag the email over them for them?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, well, their job is to drag the email into their folder. Once
Right.
once they're done reading it or whatever, they drag it into their folder, and that's just something that they have to do for other reasons too, not just for this robot. And they were doing it before we even came onto the site, so we're not giving them extra work to do. That's something they've already done.
Sure.
But now, Debbie doesn't have to open that folder where everyone's dragged in their emails and go into here and enter it in here. So.
How does it know if it already hit a folder or hit one of the files that's in that folder?
Well, so after it hits the first file, if it succeeds, if the size isn't large enough, or if the size is appropriate, and the upload process, then it immediately moves that file out of the folder into an archive folder.
Cool.
So that way, the next time the robot runs, it won't go through a file that it's already touched. If there's a problem with that file, then it moves it into a oops folder, or I want to call it an unprocessed folder. But this is basically what these files will look like here. So this is their naming convention. The claim number, this actually made it pretty easy for us. This is how they want to name the files. The email is the claim number and a version. So they might get multiple emails per claim. So, .0, .1, whatever. This made it extremely easy for us. What I do is I just grab the claim number, I split this string off of that. And then that's the claim number. We search it in SIMS. If we find it, then UiPath has already recorded where this file is located. And I have all that stored in just a list array. So we just have it's just an array that captures the claim and the directory that file is in and the file size. Then if it all works out, then it uploads it.
Cool.
No, I was thinking about the next stuff.
What kind of error handling does it have for UI updates?
So for updates, so like if you have a web application that might change the look and feel a lot, the fields are moving different areas, they have what they call anchor points in UiPath, which will look for the label of the field. So first name, it will look for first name, and then it will, in a three, like right around that label, will find the nearest field that has the parent ID of that has that label ID, basically.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can define anchor points. And if you know that maybe the fields will be moving, but we always know first name will be on the left of the field, you can specify anchor point first name on the left. But if you don't know, then it will do a 360 and it will just look all around that label and find the most appropriate field. And then if not found, you just, yeah, I have everything in kind of try catch basically. And so if nothing's found, we log the error, the exception message in Orchestrator. And so it will say, could not find, and it will actually list out the HTML element that it was trying to find and the page in the application that it was at. And it takes a screenshot of the error and puts it into a screenshots folder. So it'll show you, hey, this is where we couldn't find something. Give you an idea of that.
Does it look for near misses?
What's that?
Will it acknowledge a near miss, you know, like Google search engine? Misspell a word or something like that?
Yeah, you can do
variable?
wildcard searches and stuff like that. So you can have it look for a close match to something, not like a 100% match to something. You know, if file contains at least these three things, you know, something like that, you can do that. If that answers your question a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So do you have to write some kind of code to actually find all the field elements on the form?
No.
Define it
So
by
so yeah, let me give you guys a little demo, I guess, of this. Okay. So
Fill in the property.
well, it's pretty neat how it works.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
there's a couple different tools. There is this glorified recording tool, and what that does is it literally records your mouse movement and it just emulates it. This is good for POCs or spin up something quickly, but this is not recommended just because I ran into this problem. Sean and I were actually demoing this somewhere, and I just used the recorder tool because I didn't really know what I was doing yet. And then we went to the client site and put it on their projector, and my arrow had no idea where anything was because the resolution was different. So recording is very unstable, breaks a lot.
It goes by the coordinates, right?
Right. So what we do instead, let me organize this. I'm going to go into my projects. Okay, I'm going to just make a new sequence and just kind of show you guys this. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a quick sequence of just logging in to the Sims application, okay? And just to save time, things will be hard-coded right now. You know, the classes and stuff will explain how to create your arguments, how to pass in your variables in between your workflows to kind of make it, you know, more dynamic. Okay. So in here, what we want to do, we have our activities panel here. All right, and since we're working with a browser, we want to start with an attached browser activity. As I mentioned here, best practice is annotation. Make a new annotation, kind of like a comment. What are you doing? Now here you can either just indicate what browser you're doing like this, or you can define it differently through the properties and actually just say what the application type is, i.e. like that. So I'm gonna, usually I store the browser in like an actual variable or what have you, but it's just like this. So now it knows it's this browser. And what we want to do now is they have these type into and type secure text activities. So here, we go like this, indicate the element inside the browser. So here's the username. Now, it's a little finicky. It doesn't always catch it right away. So I always go into my selector afterwards. Now, as you can see, it's looking for the title. What if someone changes the title of the web page? This robot won't work anymore. So you want to come in and try and make this as simple as possible so it won't break. So in here, you're able to come in and modify a few things with it. And these are all the elements that make up that field. So you can decide what you do and what you don't want in there. sometimes you have to play around with it a little bit in order for it to work. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can indicate an anchor. So if you're not sure that that field will always stay in the same spot, the client assured us that their UI won't change. So later on we might add anchor points, but that wasn't a big deal for this guy here, but it's always good to ask. So obviously I'd spend more time. You can, put just a star, like the title star, so it'll accept anything as the title or just take the title out. A lot of different things there. And now, go ahead and expand this guy here, and so here's the text. So obviously you would want to pass in a variable in here, not just hard code it, but here, we can just, like that. What we would do in a real situation, asset, so you would get your asset name. So you go into Orchestrator, type in the exact name of that asset, and then in here, create a variable, call it username. Now, your variable resides down in here. You can change the scope of it. So now it's in the entire sequence if you want. And there's the username. And it'll be in there. So, but I'm just trying to keep it simple for you guys right now. Come back in here. So we're just hard coding in that username for now. Another important thing is you can either actually do the click. So if you don't have any of these checked, what it's going to do is it's going to rely on you being in the machine, and it's going to use as if you're really typing on the keyboard. If you simulate it or send a window message, then it's doing everything behind the scenes for you. So you want to simulate as much as possible. That way you don't actually see your arrow going around. You can do other things while your robot's running. And then empty the field. So if your browser is cached, remember your username. You always want to empty it. Just makes sense so that way you know what you're getting. Yeah. No, he was talking about.
I was raising it for you.
Thank you. So, just a question about the manual process from the BMW flow. Remember it had that one box that, they had to perform a manual step. When the robot comes to that, obviously it stops and says, okay, manual process in place. And then the user has to do some sort of input.
Mm-hmm.
And then is that continuation, is that all still just one process, or do you have to create two separate processes?
It depends on how you want to do it. You can have it. You can have a process solely be a dialog box that accepts input and then calls another process, or you can have it all in one big long process. It really just depends on your design, just like anything.
Right. So you could pass it. Checking your info that you could do the UI element to gather the data and then pass it behind the scenes.
Right.
Yeah. So you would control the 3 or 4 things you wanted.
Right, and then you would have your manual input.
Right, and it would just sit there and wait.
Right, it would sit and wait, and then the manual input, and then that would trigger the continuation of, it's so distracting,
I don't look at the camera.
right? Then you would just have the continuation of the flow, or if you had created the separate task.
Right. So
You have this project where you can drag any process you want. You can drag into here and it invokes it. So you can have one process call another process.
Okay.
Have it call itself.
It could be.
You can have dependencies.
Right. For the BMW one, it could be simply, can they work in Germany? And someone could.
Right.
It could be sitting in the game.
So we had the activity to enter in the username. That was straightforward. Now we're going to type a secure text activity. Same thing. I'm going to just indicate the element. Password. Come in here. We want that to be green. Obviously, we would probably take more time if we wanted to, really make sure this is stable. And then here is the secure text that you would want. And you would simulate that. Empty the field. And what I'm going to do just to make this easy right now is I'm just going to create a variable called password. I'm going to make it a secure string. So here you have a bunch, but you guys are very similar to with everything. So there's a lot of different variable types in here. And 32s, and 64s, list arrays, data tables, all of that good stuff. So I'm going to type in secure string. There we go. Change the scope so that way everything in this process can read that. And then in here, so I'm going to give it a default value. So I'm just hard coding in my password right now. And as you guys can see, that right there is giving you an error, and it's pretty simple. I gotta do a quick. I did this yesterday, Visual Basic. See, don't remember. I don't have everything memorized.
You knew where to find it though.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Should have had that beforehand.
But you have to make this station
Right. Oh, almost out of it.
Secure string.
No, it's gonna be it. Well, once we convert that string, then it will work.
Is it like double quotes? You can check what you have for the other one.
Yeah, actually, it's gonna show you guys what I did for the other one. So let me see what it's talking
Speaking of which, do we have a copy?
about. They do, yeah. You can control C, control V activities. Yeah,
That's right. So you don't have to like do something.
exactly. So actually, the way I handled it in here, the correct way is I'm getting the URL and I'm getting the credential, storing it in here, and then I'm just using that way. So through the asset itself. That's kind of, that gives you guys an idea. I don't want to waste your time trying to figure out that conversion for this. Maybe afterwards, if you guys want, I can tweak with it a little bit more. But basically dragging and dropping, selecting your elements. This thing also has the UI Explorer, which is just basically an advanced way of, like I showed you guys, just to see everything that makes up those things. Let me proceed to the next step. So we only have 15 minutes left. Okay, so to get training and certification, one thing I didn't put on here, but I will add it, is the Udemy course. So there is a Udemy course that I would encourage you guys to take first. It's just a broad overview. It's not too long of a video. How long? It's not
6 hours.
6 hours? Not,
81 lessons.
compared to
It's
4,
just several
yeah.
little lectures of like 5 to 7 minutes each, but
Some of these are 40
You can
hours, so
skip
6 hours isn't that bad.
yeah.
So anyway, this is if you're going to be a technical user, these are the ones that I would encourage you to take. So the 3 that are done, UiPath pretty much made me take these before they would let me like work with a client. They were really encouraging people to take those. So the RPA Developer Foundation, that one's pretty long, but that just gives you, it's like a fire hose of information, just gives you everything. Orchestrator, obviously, it's just about that. And then the Solution Architect, that kind of gets a little bit into RE framework and Untitled Best Practices. This one I'm currently working on. This guy's a 40-hour class. Basically, they just give you a design document and you have to build the robot from scratch without anyone holding your hand. And then you upload it and they review it and then you get a pass or fail. So I'm almost done with it. It's all free until June. So that's kind of cool. So I'm trying to do all that. So here, the UiPath, the RPA Academy, you can go and start taking these at your leisure if you want. All of them except for this one right here, it's just a video. They're just videos and a quiz. It's like multiple chapters, video, quiz, multiple choice. And then at the end of each one is an exam where you only get like 2 times to pass it.
So create a robot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I thought about it.
They'd have to certify.
Right?
In robot version core.
You have them. Robot. They're robot.
If you're non-technical, so business analysts or what have you, these ones I would encourage you guys to take. I know Lydia took some of those to get prepped for this project. I haven't dived into these ones, but Michael, I know you took 1 or 2. They're just pretty much video and quiz, right?
Yeah, it's the same format as the.
Yeah.
And there's actually some pretty excellent documentation.
Yeah. The video in the beginning that we watched, the BMW, that guy is actually the one that does these classes. So it's
Yeah,
the
it's
same.
most pretty. There's
I like it. See, I comprehend better with accents. So. You have to pay attention more. I don't know. So after you guys take these classes, or if you're feeling lucky, you can just go straight here. This is what's free until June. Afterwards, it's
someone disclosed to me.
yeah, it's
Probably $9.95.
yeah,
Very
yeah, the end of June. So you have until the end of June. You get certified for free, and this is just like this right here, but even bigger. Again, they just give you a design doc and you build a robot, and then you submit it.
You're saying you should drop all the stuff you're doing and just do the people?
Right? I really give it my all, and I'm like 30 plus hours into this, almost done, but then with life and everything, you know.
Is that for VAs, or is that just like technical?
That's technical. This is a technical one. I don't know if they have, I think that for non-tech, this will suffice. You get degree, you get diplomas, to your certificates that you can print out.
And then you show up in Friday footnotes.
Yep. Exactly. All right, so that, in an overview, is what UiPath is. Sorry, I kind of fumbled with that secure string thing, but that is bound to happen, as you guys know. One thing I can actually, if you got a few minutes, just kind of give you guys might like this. He briefly covered this. I'm gonna just take oh. So the guy in that BMW video kind of showed this a little bit. I think it's really cool, so I'd like to show you guys. So here they do have the debug. You can toggle breakpoints if you want to. So if you come in here and you really want to know what's going on with this step, has a little breakpoint in here. You can remove all breakpoints if you want. What's cool, and we're actually planning on doing this for our demo on Tuesday, is you can do a slow step through the entire thing, and you can actually choose how slow you want it to go, and then you debug it, and it will basically give you an idea of how this guy is going through each step. Yeah. Yeah, so you got output, so I have like my statements that I've been writing, just so I know things. And I always likes to do that, because, getting on your talk.
Are you marketing this or trying to sell the services to state agencies, or I could see this being used in all kinds of things.
Yeah, we already are doing it I mean, for CSAT.
I can see it, you know, for, I don't know, I think it is, I mean, for attorneys, like a client conflict, you know, we have to do a check to make sure there's no conflicts with, you know, with current or prior clients. You could run one of these bad boys and do that easily.
Yep.
And we're also done some exploration to do testing, so we have our testers.
Yeah,
And
automated
build,
testing.
This is going to the Excel sheet right now. That's what this guy's doing, grabbing every value.
How you're doing Excel spreadsheet.
I can definitely see that.
Much better than the old, like,
So apart from the UI changes, what are the limitations or challenges for you?
Okay, yeah, so certain web apps, you know, have JavaScript stuff that you're not aware of when you're coming into the project.
Yeah.
So one thing is I was trying to upload the file and it just kept failing, and I realized that what I was doing is I was manually there was a field that was obviously dependent on being filled out before you could upload something. I was just typing into this field, it actually fired on click event. So there was like a JavaScript that was not running, and so the web application just wasn't responding the way I wanted it to, because I just didn't know that there was a on click event running some JavaScript that I needed to do before I could upload the file. So knowing a little bit about the background of that application kind of will help you save time, rather than doing a type into, you need to do a click event for this, because you need this to, you know, run that JavaScript before you can do this next thing.
So is it dynamics friendly?
It is, but it's a little bit more cumbersome. You have to use that UI Explorer tool a lot, because in Dynamics there's like 20 different sections of divs, of elements in there, and they're different every time. There's usually only one element that's always consistent whenever the page loads, and so you got to find the consistency in that.
About dynamic find the sections as well on Dynamics, because the sections are always collapsed.
Yeah, exactly. So Dynamics is a bit more difficult, but it still works.
About grids and tables and dynamic data.
Yeah, so they have an entire Excel library in here where you can either, they have activities that actually open Excel and do things for you, or in the background without having Excel even installed in your computer, it can still manipulate Excel files. And
I was thinking more about, you know, on your web page you have a bunch of grids that has data dynamic based on where it is.
yeah, so look, this is actually kind of cool. You guys get this idea, right? So
Can we try it against a generic website like the airplane booking kind of thing?
yeah, they even have some pretty cool. Let me see if I can find.
Instructor.
He interned at United, and his job was to just continuously randomly change the prices.
No,
So the travelers
wow.
wouldn't follow him. So he's like, you know, if you got lucky, like you could get a flight to Hawaii for like $10 at like the right time of day. So it's just like changes. Because there's all kinds of people that build robots to watch it, and you know, keep the price.
If you click it on, if you go back to that site more than once after you looked at it, they up the price.
Yeah.
Incognito.
Still, they still
Bill?
So
So look up for rate an hour
so
and then
Villa
close
and
the
Hawaii
browser.
for
open
25
the
bucks.
incognito.
do you have to do a VPN or something? Use different IPs every time? They track every price. Even though incognito, they can track it. They can track the machine area also now. Everything is accessible.
Oh,
Where I could pull one
Like,
up.
can you think of anything? Like, I can whatever.
Website with them?
I guess they do that too.
Yeah.
Even CRM, any CRM site.
I'm not gonna do CRM right now.
That's like price comparison.
Yeah.
Big product on Amazon is go to the bottom of
So can you,
like
schedule
for
this?
this thing, like does it have an API that you can attach to so you can add functionality to it?
I believe so. Yeah, that's at the SPA section, script processing automation. You can add other things that are outside of like, Visual
So like
Basic.
if you can connect an API to it.
Yeah, you can definitely.
Stuff,
You can.
that'd be really
That's within the. If you are interested in that, that is covered here. The SAP automation class. Haven't done it yet, but that definitely goes into that.
So we saw a lot of static. Oh, go ahead. We saw a lot of static websites that you're working with, but how does it handle pop-ups?
Yeah, more
Trend
pop-ups.
pop-up.
Like an external login, for example. If you want to log into, let's say
The
Microsoft,
second
so
touch, two-factor
Log in
Yeah.
using
Opens up
Facebook or
another-
something.
you would just, almost like any other element, you would just have it try and identify that window and the ID of that window so it knows.
It stays in context?
Yeah.
Grab a new tab and fill it out.
Yeah, and you could even make a variable out of it. They have browser variables and window variables, so you can actually say, hey, this window is called my window 1, and this is my window 2, and you can pass that from one sequence to another.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can have 20 notepad windows open, and each one can be identified differently, and then there's UiPath. That's neat.
What if the variable changes?
That's
But I know when we were trying to do like a drop down, do a selection from a drop down window for a name, like of a person, and then if somebody, like another name gets added, then the sequence changes and then it would fade.
It's so smart. It knows.
Totally
Yeah.
like change your dynamic.
Yeah. Because it has a library of select value, and it just determines it as a drop down list, and it tells you how many are in there, and it
I
grabs
have a
it.
friend that works in my class.
But what
and
if
he
it's
outsources
you
his
just
job
have
for
a
3
certain
people.
one,
And
value,
he just
then the
checks their
value
work on
and
Fridays.
That could, I mean, that probably.
Are you serious?
Like, he has a
That's
contractor
cool.
job, he just gets.
Well, that's good.
How much experience do you need for that?
He's pretty high up.
Well,
He's making enough to pay 3 people.
You don't get caught.
Seniority or something.
You don't get caught.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was funny that it turned around.
Yeah.
He started out with 1.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
So the one that you showed us is you right-click the UiPath and started the process, right? You started the process manually by clicking on a button on the UiPath saying, hey, run this for flow, whatever it's called. Can you schedule it based on like, hey, there's a new file on this folder, then start a workflow or something?
Like off of a trigger.
Yeah.
Like
Or something is always done in like a Windows scheduler task, which
Yeah.
grabs wherever there's something.
It checks and watches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. All I know is that you can either manually or you can schedule it. So that's a good
So schedule is
Right.
definitely gonna work.
One of the things,
It cannot be like a trigger or something.
the
you can have it
licensing
say, hey,
aspects of it.
every 30 minutes run it.
Check it.
If this is here, so
Check
you can
Every 1
schedule
minute
it
or
and then
even
have
something.
it. Yeah.
Right, as part of the licensing, you block off the time. So if you wanted to commit 24/7
Just go to the
robot,
bottom where it shows
then
recommended.
that's the
Oh,
only
not-
thing
not
to do would be listen. And your third
Like,
robot.
when I saw this, also saw,
Also bought.
yeah, like that.
Do they
Right?
charge you
Yes,
per
sir.
bot? Like if you have different bots that do those different little sections and you want to call them in?
It's very much like
They're on
you get a day's worth of robot. So if your process only takes, if the first process takes 3
My
hours,
wife does that for me.
you have 21 hours left that you can program with that same.
Yeah, we have your quarter, right?
By time and by bot.
I forgot.
See, that's what.
Steve, other than
Yeah,
that.
I thought so. Like,
She's gonna love
So,
is that
yeah.
right? Number how many?
The game runs like one.
You
Robots
have
per
robots,
turn, right? So
so
that's
you
the
have-
license.
Yeah, this is cute.
Right, robots are
Yeah.
so busy.
Yeah.
Cool. Even though
That's
it's
what
just.
they do.
Yeah,
So
an
that's one
hour
thing I was gonna,
thing, so
real
they
quick
want you to
guys, just
maximize
real
the
quick.
hours that the
Last
robot
thing.
works.
So community version, anyone can start right now. It's free. They're limited to 2 robots, and Orchestrator is hosted online. So platform.uipath.com, and you can create a tenant, and you are limited to 2 robots. That's the community version. It's like $20,000 for enterprise. But you're not limited to robots then.
How many users can use it at the same time?
Depends on licenses. That's something I'm still trying to clarify with UiPath. I asked them that today, and they didn't know.
You make your robot work 24
It's pretty
hours.
neat.
We're working on it.
It's pretty
Yeah,
new.
but
Startup.
so it's important though to understand that if you get on-prem, if you get the enterprise version, Orchestrator is on-premise, so you can install Orchestrator on your virtual machine, and you know, you connect with SQL and all of that. Community is a little bit lighter.
And that is our Lunch and Learn from Cole. Cole, say goodbye to your fans.
See you guys. Thanks for your time.